So what happens when a person gets born again? Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. This is something that I learned much later after I came into the faith. To understand what happens when man transitions from being a non-believer to believing in Jesus Christ, we go back to the very beginning. Both Genesis and John, both saying the same thing. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and then God said, let there be light. In John, we see that in the beginning was the Word was God, and the Word was God. And a few verses later, we see that word transitions to becoming flesh, being Jesus Christ, right, that we believe in. Now, in Genesis, we see that God said, let there be light, right? And in John, we see that in him was light, and that light became the life of men, which is our life. I personally used to believe that light that God said in Genesis was physical light, but then it is that same Genesis we see later that God then created like sun and stars. So that light was not actually physical light. It was the same light that was written in John. That light that became the life of men, that is found in Jesus Christ. And it makes sense because there was nothing that was created without that word being Jesus Christ. So in Genesis, we also see the story of Adam and Eve, where man basically rejected God. So there was like a disconnection. So the same way a tree is pulled out from the soil being the source, right, and then the tree dies, it's the same way man got disconnected from God, and then we were dead in sin. We were in a state of sin, right? So it's that state of sin that then brings manifestations of lying, stealing, right? It's that state of unbelief. So there was nothing that man could do that would connect God back to man, or connect man back to God, even by following the law. Even the law could not save men. So it took God to come down by himself, right, to become the sacrifice for man to be connected back to God. So in believing in that work that's already been finished, that we cannot do by ourselves, right, there is a reconnection back to that source. And so in connecting back to God, man becomes the full original as it was originally created. There's like we come back to that original state, right? We move from death to life, like a tree is connected back to the source. Now, in the entire history, we only see that there is only one God that came to die on earth, only one God, and which is why Jesus, being that word that we were created through, right, is the only way, the only truth, and the only life. So in believing in what Jesus did, which is died, resurrected on the third day for us to have eternal life, there is an adoption back, right? We connect back to God. So that's basically what happens when a man gets born again. Bye.